Recording in progress.
Okay, good to see all of you. This class is going to be moved to Thursdays at time. So it will not, so next week it will not be on a Wednesday anymore. It'll just be on a Thursday. Tomorrow there'll also be class if anyone wants to come. So I announced the schedule change, but since it doesn't make its way to everybody, I knew people were going to show up today. So, but yeah, starting next week, there'll just be class. There'll just be this evening sit on Thursdays. So there's a new schedule that's pretty robust. Let me see if I can fix that.
No.
New schedule in that from now on, there'll be the Thursday evening sit, which is 7 p.m. Pacific, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there's classes at 9 a.m. Each day. So on Friday morning at 9, there's the Bardos series, which we're like halfway through at this point. And then Saturday mornings will be lucid dreaming and out of body experience. And Sunday mornings will be Jhanas and cessation. Yeah, so give a quick overview of the content for the classes. Bardo stuff, everyone already understands that. For the Saturday class, anyone that's interested specifically in lucid dreaming and out of body and the higher self type of content, that would be the class to attend. And Sunday will really be more like meditation from the ground up. So there's some new students that have come along, and I guess this is for the new students, but then also for students that have showed up like within the last year. There's been more questions about meditation fundamentals, or the challenge that the issue that a lot of the material or presentation is just too far ahead of where some people are at. So the Jhanas stuff will really be a lot of the introductory material. So it'd be like Eightfold Path, Jhana factors, 7 factors of enlightenment. So a lot of you have heard me talk about those subjects before. So this would be like a new cycle of that for a new group of students. Yeah, so that's it. Really the starting the new classes, it'll help with the preparation of, or it'll help with turning that content or the transcripts from those classes into books. So that's my goal for 2026 is to write. There's a few books in the pipeline. Yeah. So that's that. Okay. So we can begin with our hangout or Q&A. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I was curious about the Monroe, what are they called? States or
Focus levels.
focus levels, thank you. Yeah, just I've actually done a few of the meditations, but there's always sort of this question of like, am I is it in that now, or, and, you know, I experienced different states from different other meditations, and I kind of try to fit in like what's what with their model. Do you have any, I mean, we don't need to like do a whole guidance on it, but just sort of overview or something?
Yeah. So on so the Saturday class for the OBE and lucid dreaming, that'll be very Monroe focused. Like you'll do the introductory astral projection, lucid dreaming stuff, but then there'll be a lot of like joint exploration between me and a couple other people in the group that want to look at different aspects of the Monroe focus levels. So the Monroe focus levels go from 1 to 49, and they're divided in seven, like basically seven octaves. So the focus levels from like 1 to 7 have to do with consciousness as it develops, or reality, from like the mineral kingdom all the way up to animal consciousness or human consciousness. Once you progress, or like, for example, one of the more commonly used focus levels in the Monroe work is focus 10. So these different numbers on a spectrum from 1 to 49 represent different places on the spectrum of consciousness. So I think focus 9 is like ordinary waking consciousness, and then focus 10 is mind awake, body asleep. So it's at focus 10 that anything beyond that represents states of consciousness that are beyond the waking state. So if you have mind awake, body asleep, that's like focus 10. And then I think like just being asleep is considered a particular focus level as well. Like it'd probably be focus 13 or 14 or something like that. There's not a specific name or title for each for each number between 1 and 49, but mainly it's that there are specific numbers for particular states. So like focus 10 is mind awake, body asleep. Focus 12 is considered like a guidance channel. So it means that you're now past the point of the body being asleep or the body being deeply relaxed, and are now receiving intuitive guidance in a clearer or more perceptive way, because the body is deeply relaxed or asleep. Focus 15 is timelessness, or no time. So yeah, when you use the Monroe tracks or the hemisync technology, you do focus 15. It's common to experience a sense of timelessness, or like losing yourself in time, or like 15 minutes went by and it felt like, a couple seconds or something like that, or you blip out for an extended period of time, like temporarily fall asleep. Yeah. Focus 21, for example, is called bridge to other reality systems. So that's usually the focus level that people have a full out-of-body experience at. Focus 23 is an afterlife state. So that's, I think Bob referred to it as like, no, I think I mixed that up. Focus 27 is called the reception center. So that's a place where people go in the afterlife territories after they have experienced a physical death, or if you go there in an OBE, and from there you're able to see and have contact with departed humans that are like basically undergoing a life review. So these different these different points on the spectrum of consciousness. If you listen to like near death experience reports, you'll find people describing the same themes, but like how that particular reality is structured or how it appears to them may be different. So yeah, so you have 21 as a major point on the spectrum, 27 as a major point. Focus 34/35 is when the higher self levels begin. So it's at those levels that you have access to like walking into your past lives, for example, or experiencing the nature of the higher self. Yeah, Bob talks about those stages in his second book. And 49 was the furthest Bob Monroe went. And 49 he described as like basically the edge of our reality or the edge of our universe and edge of conditioned existence as we've known it. And yeah, he called it the emitter. Like it was this almost like a base reality, or what he would consider a base reality. Like if anyone here is familiar with simulation theory, there's the idea that this is the fabricated reality, like this is generated out of some code, but that there is a base reality in which the code was written. So Bob claims that base reality is focus 50. But yeah,
Right.
focus 49 or 50. Yeah.
And just a couple quick follow-ons. One is like, are there like correspondences of these with like different samadhis and jhanas and stuff, or is it kind of like on its different plane or something? And then also yeah, I guess just has your experience been like if somebody's just getting into this is like a long road, or are they sort of like fairly readily accessible, or what's the sort of trajectory of like practice and experience look like?
Pretty accessible because pretty accessible if you know what you're doing or you have the right advice. So like for example, as soon as you have an out of body experience, you can access focus 34/35 by saying higher self now, commanding higher self now as soon as there's a separation. So there are ways to like quantum leap in these types of processes or schemas. So, but how they map onto jhanas, for example, it's hard to say because it depends on the depth of the jhana as well. But I would say that focus 49 or the focus states are, are explaining and mapping out specific planes of existence, and the jhanas are more about the consciousnesses that you would find in those planes.
Yeah.
So like yeah, that's the best way that I would describe it. So like yeah, so for example, if you were to have an out of body and then say higher self now, and then you enter this like cosmic consciousness, omnipresent light sort of thing, that would correspond to um yeah, the higher self levels, or like 35 plus in the Monroe map,
Cool.
or beyond likely, because Bob he didn't talk a lot about like formlessness stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
So
fun.
yeah, I think the Monroe stuff is pretty fun and accessible, and yeah, that doesn't require like you need to disappear into a retreat for 2 or 3 months, you know. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
it takes consistency for sure, but once yeah, kind of once you've had like your first lucid dream, it's a bit easier. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
great.
would say. Yeah, but good question. I always like talking about Robert Monroe, of course. So yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I did one of Joe's retreats online for fun like a few weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah,
Joe,
how was that? What was that? What was that like?
it was cool. It was like the Inner Vegas one, but online.
Oh, Joe Gallenberger. Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah,
So
he's really good at what he does.
yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, so there's some Monroe,
He teaches
language.
at the Monroe Institute. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
that's been pretty much my only experience with the Monroe like system. But then when I heard that you were doing them, I was like, oh, maybe that could be like a fun little rabbit hole to go down.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Joe's really good. I mean, I think he's actually demonstrated psychokinetic phenomena at Duke University and other places. Yeah, he's exceptional. I had a friend who went and did the Inner Vegas thing like in person with him,
yeah,
and she watched him make 25K in a night.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he's not like counting cards, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, because then other people around him are winning as well, and so it's pretty fun and surprising.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, but yeah, just the gist of it was like that. It's all about it's all about heart opening, and it's all about like basically bringing your current state to like the highest sort of energetic level possible, and
right.
uh and then kind of letting go of any residual fear or greed aspects, and just just pumping that into the um light intentions for the desire or whatever, and away you go. And yeah, I mean, we were testing it, and there is like sort of a group thing that powers it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, what games are you guys playing? If this was online, how did that work?
Well, it would be like we do a few meditations and different sort of group exercises and sharing and stuff, and then we'd like all roll dice, and then he would record the rolls, and he'd be
Hmm.
like, okay, we're gonna focus on doubles now. And then everyone would roll, and then we would just record and see if we were like hitting above statistical uh win rates, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then yeah, so and like yeah, he was rolling pretty high.
Right.
But everyone else was like, a little
like
higher.
like like a little over a statistical. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's definitely skilled at that. I've talked to Joe, like I've had like three calls with him over the years, so I've talked with him quite a bit. So
yeah,
yeah, I've always liked him.
yeah. I really enjoyed the he has like kind of a simple way of just evaluating your state in any moment. So it's like um just like really briefly, or I'll simplify it, but on the lower level, it's like the world is annoying, people are frustrating, like, that kind of thing. And then it's like maybe you move past that to sort of neutrality, and it's just kind of, it's not annoying or great, it's just whatever. And then
Right.
there's like beauty in the things that are beautiful, like you'll notice, instead of noticing like weeds, now you're noticing like, oh, that's a cool pattern of those weeds, that's a or the flower, actually no, the flowers would be really beautiful. And that's like beauty in the mundane, right? So you're
Mm,
just looking at the floor tiles, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. So we're going up, and then it's like, and then there's some kind of like quantum jump where then you're sort of seeing auras or like glowing around mountains or trees or whatever. And then he was
Mm,
talking about like in the when things would get really high for him, he'd start to hear like angelic choirs and stuff, like actually
yeah,
hear them in the air.
yeah.
And then it just goes from there. But yeah.
Wow. So for the going from there part, or like when you're finally hitting that on ramp and the energy is building up, is he still having you actually do something at that point, or is it just kind of, you know,
Well,
you've lit the match and you let go and it just keeps
yeah,
increasing?
I think it's you lit the match and then you're kind of there's some different themes so you can follow like intuition at that point. Um
Oh, right.
and just because it might be telling you like a little bit, oh, pull back from here, like you've done enough. Or just like you'll be able to predict like what cards are coming or what dice you're gonna roll. And you'll just like almost start seeing it, and that's when you can just bet like really big. Um,
Hmm.
Most people didn't really, I don't think, get to that state in the retreat, but they were more working on like building up the qualities of gratitude and appreciation and heart opening and all the things that kind of lead to that. Um,
Yeah,
so most of it's cultivation type stuff.
yeah, yeah. Because I think there's a high degree of confidence as a factor in all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Besides just getting into a high energy state, there's definitely a confidence element that's involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. And then it probably spirals on itself, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I did. I mean, I don't know if I've talked about it. I mean, I've probably talked about it with some of you here. I don't know. Yeah, I did like a psychokinesis workshop with a lady who was an assistant to a guy named Jack Hook. I think his name was Jack Hook. Anyways, he was a researcher for, or he was a scientist for Lockheed Martin. So he was specifically studying for them um, mind matter effects on metal, and particularly in space.
Well,
So he found that this was a phenomena. So he started going. This was like in, I think in the 80s. He started doing these like psychokinesis parties, and there's videos of him being on TV with groups of kids like bending spoons and all this wild stuff. And yeah, in my cohort, this girl um, buckled the bowl of a spoon. Yeah, and like it wasn't just her. Like she buckled the bowl of a spoon, which is impossible. I mean, I tried it, and there was like five other people that were just like doing all this crazy stuff with metal, and I was like, I mean, either everyone here is like being paid to do this, but I doubted it because the ticket price was so low. It was like $25, you know, to come and join this party. And I've shown pictures of it to people, but it's like it's a picture, so it just seems absurd. And people always think it's fake. But yeah, in that workshop, I stuck a spoon to a wall, which is pretty strange. So yeah, you put the spoon on the wall, and then you do this. You like get into a higher energy state, and then you launch an intention that it stays it stays on the wall, and it did. So that was wild. I've tried it like I don't know 11 or 12 times after that. I haven't been able to replicate it, but that one time it worked. So yeah, it's pretty fun. The lady's name was Jacqueline Jacqueline something. I'd have to like look it up again, but yeah, student of Jack Hook. Other questions?
Hey Ryan.
Hey,
Um, I asked you this already, but I'm going to ask it again because you didn't answer very much. So after that gnarly cessation that you had, I asked you if like how was the processing of it going, and you said there was none. And at first I didn't understand that at all, and then I thought maybe I understood it a bit, but I want to ask you here, and so you could tease it out a bit more. And by
no,
processing, I mean,
there's
yeah,
not a
how
not a
did
process.
how did the body mind, I don't know, what did it do with, because there's still your humanness. So like what I meant is like how does that part of you deal with what happened? Like, is there not trauma at some level?
Um, it's hard to say, like trauma. Is there trauma? Mm, no. I mean, it's not like looping in my head, but for sure, I mean, I would not be surprised if the next time I enter the cessation or that level of it, that there would be intense fear to contend with, or literally the same thing that happened to contend with or to deal with. So yeah, I mean, I could make a process out of it, but I just don't. It's kind of one of those things that it's not really accessible unless you're in that state. So you can like prepare to get punched in the face, but like once you're punched in the face, it's a different thing. So yeah, there's not really preparation in the sense that there's not any way to access that level of fear outside of emerging from that samadhi. So yeah, I guess I could do things about it, but that's just not something that I'm concerned about. Yeah. Basically when it happens, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. So and yeah, there's of course there's fear around it, but I have to deal with it. It's just gonna be what it is. Yeah. For anyone that is wondering what I'm talking about, just like briefly mention it. On the last retreat that I did in preparation for the brain study at Harvard, um, I went into a I went into cessation, and almost all literally every cessation, the definition of cessation is consciousness turns off. Everything disappears, but this time it was different in that perception and feeling turned off, but consciousness didn't, and there was this falling out of individuated consciousness, very visceral. Um, Body braced for death, all of that. And then when I emerged from it, because it was unexpected, I didn't expect the consciousness to continue. I didn't expect it. Basically proved the theory that I proposed over a year ago correct. I wrote a post on my website called Cessations and Considerations. And what I had stated in that post was, I don't think cessation is the cessation of consciousness at all. I think cessation is what happens is that in cessation, or what we define as cessation, there's a gap in memory, a gap in perception, feeling, memory. And because there's a gap in memory, it's signified or identified as a gap in consciousness. And the theory I proposed was that that's not true. There's not actually a cessation of consciousness. It just appears that way because there's a gap in memory. Why is there a gap in memory? I propose that the mind touches something that's so strange, so different from its ordinary configurations that it can't recall what happened. And so in this retreat, that uh, yeah, it's possible that past a certain point, there's entire strata of this strange phenomena that the mind ordinarily wouldn't recall. So I experienced one of these, and then when I emerged from it, I would just describe it as like temporary insanity. It's really all I could. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, couldn't distinguish between the past and the future. Couldn't distinguish between location. So like the clear sense of being here and things being over there. Perceptual distinction between here and there that got lost. So it was an incredibly disorienting thing. Initially disorienting, but wasn't a problem. But then when, self-recognition turns back on, there's fear of like losing yourself in time. And the difference is that it wasn't a psychedelic experience, In a psychedelic experience, the ultimate recourse is you're on psychedelics. Like it's gonna end at some point, But what was, quite terrifying about this experience was that it was endogenous. Yeah, it just happened naturally. So as part of, I guess, the kind of practitioner that I am, or whatever, I'm just not willing to accept fear. Like if there's something I'm afraid of, I have to face it. Otherwise, he'll just hang over my head for the rest of my life. So, but yeah, it made some things pretty clear, and things that were not particularly, like, it showed me that linearity in space-time is like ultimate safety. Like forget about the ultimate safety of home and like familiar people. Like, yeah, that's what we consider safety. But like, just localization in space-time itself is a form of safety. Feels safe compared to the absence of it. So yeah, but we'll see what it's about, or what it entails, or what it opens, because it might be kind of the beginning of like a multi-dimensional perception. Or yeah, I mean, really how it felt, and what was tough about it was it felt like being on ayahuasca or being on DMT or something like that. And those states have a very, inhuman quality. And so, yeah, so there's a level of fear, like, yeah, there's just a kind of, yeah, there's just fear. And it's not the fear of like ceasing to exist. I think ceasing to exist is kind of like death. That's something that I handled before. But this was like, yeah, being insane forever. So it's a different kind of fear. And likely that's not even it's not possible, right? Likely that would not be an outcome, or it would not be possible, but it's part of the territory, in that like it comes with the territory at that point, or at those stages, you could say. Yeah.
Everything that you just said then, I mean, to me, I would call that, the way you're thinking about it is processing. So that's whenever you talk about it now, like that's part of what I meant. And it's great to hear. Like I'm really interested to see what your brain, like how it makes sense of what happens, and then where you see yourself going. And like I thought, like when you first described that experience, I'm like, what that's a massive carrot to someone like you. It's not like you're not going to run for the hills. It's a carrot, and yeah, like it sounds like you're going to try and get back there. So all of that is what I would call processing.
Yeah, so processing to me is like specifically dealing with trauma. Or I thought that's what you meant, like specifically dealing with like the trauma of it. I wouldn't say there's trauma from it. It's just that when you touch something like that, there's fear. But it's not like something that is impeding on my consciousness or, you know, my day-to-day life or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, it's not really like it's not like this new thing to get excited for. Like, I don't get that. That'd be nice. I'd like to have new things to be excited about, but I don't have new things to be excited about ever. So it's just that, like, you just know you have to go there. It's not about wanting it or liking it or excited to see how it's going to be or whatever. Like, yeah, if anything, I should be unmotivated and unexcited about it, because yeah, it's not a fun thing, you know. It's not fun. Not that it needs to be, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's fun. It's not enjoyable. It's just a different kind of TV channel, or it's a different kind of state. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if it was fun, but no. Yeah, it just feels very, as a natural thing. Like, if I don't do much, then this type of stuff starts to happen. Like, just sit more, not be as much on my phone. Um, all of that just starts to emerge. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So, um, if a person dies, do you think it's preferable to reincarnate as a person, or to basically go into the non space-time space, if that's even
So
possible?
it's hard to say because it depends on the person, and like what my take on it is. From my observations, most people don't have access to non-space time based realities. Like, it's not even a thing most people will experience or can. So the reason that when you look at near death experience reports, people describe like human like stuff is because their consciousness is primarily space time oriented. So most of what happens like in the Bardo or after death is going to be related to realities that are like pretty much like this one, or you know, beings have bodies there and they communicate things telepathically. You know, they may not be flesh bodies, but there's some kind of corporal form, and those things communicate with each other, you know. So there's a lot of that. Um, yeah, but preferable depends on the person, or it depends on the consciousness unit. It doesn't depend on, like, you know, I can't say what's preferable for like most people. You know, it depends on each person. Yeah, and it's not even to say that non-form based realities are like more ultimate or more how'd you put it, better than space-time realities. You know, that's not the case either. They're just different rooms of experience, and depends on a person's goals or what your orientations are in reality. So like, if from the higher self or the soul level, your orientation or your job is to help people in space-time, then you choose existences in space-time. But if your orientation was something different, I don't know, it could be like wanting to experience some beyond. Or Nisargadatta is an example of that. He talked about a non-space-time based existence. I mean, he called it the Satguru, or like the ultimate state was his word for it, Parabrahman. And a lot of his like gusto and non-duality came with identification with that state as opposed to his human state. So he was like, I just existed. There was just existence as that primordial state. And then the I am, or the individuated consciousness, arose somehow. And I appeared in this mind body. But that is my true state. And this is the false state. So the problems of the body and of the world are not real. And to be engaged with them keeps one stuck in cyclic existence. So he was an example of a person who described and was oriented to a non-form based reality or a level of consciousness. Yeah, he was very convinced that that's what he was before this life, that's what he is after this life, and that's ultimately what everyone is. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but yeah, he's a good modern example of someone that talks about that.
Is what you're talking about must be, I don't know, maybe sounds like more fantastical or something than like in the non-dual realization, right? There's no time, space or time there either. That can be like just discerned from as in like you discern that it's just thought that just does that, and then
True. Yeah.
it becomes like a more lived feeling after that at some point. Is this something different, I sense, that you're speaking about, or is it?
Yeah, so there's the realization that like space-time appear in the field of your experience. So you see that like space-time are kind of like the perception of time, and then the perception of space is appearing within your field. And like based on that, there's a sense or the realization that they're not real, right? Like they're not these actual existent things that govern our lives, but they're still experientially present. So like if you really didn't have the experience of time, you'd be screwed. Like you wouldn't be able to do anything. If you really had no sense at all of continuity in time, that would mean basically you don't have memory. And if you're not able to organize thoughts sequentially or in a linear fashion, I think it would make existence impossible in the human realm, right? So there's knowing that there's the sense or the realization that time is not real, and then there's states of consciousness where like there's no faculty of perception in regard to time.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
You see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's not accessible anymore, basically.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So like in non-dual realization, we can know that the body is not this true existent reality, right? We know the body's empty. That's different than states of consciousness where there's literally no body. Like
Yeah.
you're just light, your sphere, you know. So yeah. So that's the difference. The difference between the realization of the nature of a thing and then the actual like perceptual presence or absence of the thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point to distinguish in that, like, with, for example, like consciousness and awareness, we often just like conflate the terms, and it's because in the non-dual literature they're used interchangeably, consciousness and awareness. So awareness is specifically the function or quality of being aware or knowing, right? Like lucidity, that's awareness. So in a dream, if you become lucid and you recognize that you're dreaming, that's the quality of that's awareness arising in that dream. So most dreams do not have the presence of awareness. There's no presence of awareness in that dream. There's consciousness, so that's why the dream is unfolding. But there's no awareness. If there's awareness, there's lucidity. That's a good example on how to, to be clear on like the presence or absence of an actual phenomena within the field of experience. Yeah, there's times where you're aware, and then there's times where you're not. Like the mind alternates between the two, right? But consciousness or experience is uninterrupted. Like that's moment to moment. But specific perceptual faculties or perception, but then also other faculties in consciousness or experience can be present or absent. There are states where it's not possible to give rise to an intention, for example. It's not possible to localize attention. So yeah, for example, dreamless sleep is an example of a state that doesn't have attention, doesn't have intention, doesn't have perceptual recognition. So that means that there's no you there to know that you're in a clear light. There's just this clear light. So these are the examples of how different states are configured. Yeah, good questions, everybody. Good questions. Oh, Joe, did you have any more on that?
No, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll drop it now.
Yeah, there's not like this process in that, like I'm trying to like unpack that thing, or like, yeah. If more fear increases, I probably will. I'll probably have to, Yeah, like I think if more fear comes up around it, I'd probably have to ask. I could find another teacher to ask about this particular phenomena, because it's not something that everyone describes or experiences at all, actually. Yeah, but I do know a couple people that would be familiar with it. Yeah. Either familiar or like close enough to being familiar. Maybe they've had a near-death experience or something like that. So yeah, anything else? Oh, I think there's a question in the chat box. If I related my experience to a psychiatrist, yeah, I mean, they probably prescribe me medication or something. I don't know. It depends on the psychiatrist. Because if the psychiatrist would put me through like psychological evaluations, I'd do fine on all of those evaluations and cognitive tests. Yeah, so depending on the psychologist or the psychiatrist, one of them would probably be like, well, I don't know what it was, but your test scores are fine. You don't seem to be you're clearly not in psychosis. But another psychologist might might interpret what happened differently, or like my ordinary state and inclinations differently. Yeah, depending on their views. I'm sure Jungian psychologists would be interested, but yeah, more reductionist, materialist psychiatrists would, probably be concerned. Also, a lot of that stuff depends on like how normal you are, or like how conventional you are. So like if I was like Robert Monroe and I was a telecommunications entrepreneur and I had 25 employees and I tell them all this stuff that, I talk to aliens, they're more likely to say, hey, I don't understand what you're saying, but you're definitely not crazy. That's for sure. But someone else, oh, he's a meditation teacher, he travels around, has no stability, no real stability in life, no children, is not married. They look at things like that and they're like, oh yeah, probably has issues. Yeah. So those are factors to consider, that how conventional or functional you appear. In terms of what society deems as like culturally acceptable, plays a major role. Yeah. Listening to Bob Monroe and seeing like everything he built and the people that he knew, like the contacts that he had, lots of people around him were in the intelligence community, like Skip Atwater and a lot of these guys. Skip Atwater literally is a CIA officer. So he was a very high caliber person, like very educated. I'm not one of those people, So, yeah. Yeah, if anyone has a question, you can just ask or put it in the chat. And today we'll sit a little bit too. I think let's see what time it is. It's getting close. Yeah, so we take one more question and then we can sit and just sit for 30 minutes, 25 or 30 minutes. And then we can end the call after that. But anyway, of course, anyone's able to leave. Anyone can leave whenever they need to. So.
Yeah, so maybe 2 nights ago, I had like some sort of an episode where I could see this light coming from my hand, and like when I closed my eyes, I saw like aliens, which is pretty weird. And you said it was clairvoyancy, which so my question is that something that's common among people that are like doing Buddhist practices or things like this?
I wouldn't say it's common, but I would say that it's happened. I mean, it's happened to me. So, yeah, you can have these types of, I call it So like clairvoyance is an umbrella term, right? It refers to one, the reception of psychic data that is then corroborated by actual events in reality. So like if I was to communicate with some person that you knew that was dead and then you didn't tell me the details of their death and I knew the details, that's clairvoyance. Or I knew one of the major details, right? There's no way, there's no logical explanation for how I was able to know that. And that knowledge was received through a specific channel or specific aspect of the field of experience, usually mental pictures or auditory perception. Like you just get the word or the phrase about the thing. So clairvoyance could be like psychic or mental pictures, but it could also be actual visual phenomena that is not ordinary. So like seeing auras, seeing chakras, seeing beings, you know, this kind of stuff with your eyes visibly. That's an example of visual clairvoyance. So I've experienced it. Yeah, it's just, it can be freaky, but there's all kinds of things we don't really understand. Yeah. So like why it happened or how it happened is pretty unknowable. But it's common that when you're meditating more or you're meditating a lot, this type of stuff occurs. So like a good example of a specifically visual clairvoyant activation is the fire kasina stuff that Dan Ingram writes about. So Dan Ingram, I think he probably kind of stumbled upon this like 10 years ago or something, 10 or 8 years ago, that if you did fire kasina, which is visualization on the fire element, if you did it like a different way from how it's presented, it produces a different result. So like how the fire kasina is usually practiced is like you look at fire, like you actually like take a large some kind of wood or like cardboard and you cut a hole in it and then you place it in front of you with a fire behind you, so then there's this clear image of like the fire arising in a disc, and you meditate on that for like several hours, days, or weeks, and it gives rise to samadhi. So that's the classic way of doing it. The issue is that most people like don't have the time to meditate for weeks on fire. So so Daniel wanted to try like other ways of doing this. So he comprised a method of like staring at a candle flame, and how he came up with this, I don't know, but it was pretty brilliant actually, was to shift from staring at the candle flame to staring at the after image that the candle flame burns in the staring at the candle flame leaves in the visual perception, in the visual field. So when you close your eyes, there's this glow, right? This afterglow. And so you would take that as the object, the little afterglow thing that's like morphing. And then when it would go away, you open your eyes again, stare at the flame, and you would rinse and repeat for 50 hours, you know, or between 50 to 150 hours. And what Dan found with his friends was that after the 100-hour mark, the visual field becomes activated, in that you can see auras, you can see other people's chakras, you know, weird things happen. Like if you're visualizing a mental thing in front of you, another person can see it. This very, very strange phenomena starts occurring. So in Dan's case, he found that as soon as you stop the retreat and you stop that high volume or high, that once you tone down the meditation, the activation goes away. So everything starts to subside after the retreat's over, pretty much. Yeah, but he found that, and there was lots of people that reported stories of they went and they did a retreat, and when the visual field finally broke open, like crabs started crawling out of the walls. Wild stuff. One guy, he said this on the Groove Viking podcast, that like it basically becomes like it's like lucid dreaming becomes this reality you can just turn your head and walk into, right? Yeah, and one of the guys, his name was Duncan something, he talked about encountering the spider Buddha. So apparently he was meditating, and then one moment he's there, and the next he's in a freaking dojo, and this like this like spider crawls over to him and just like stares at him. And he said it was a blessing or something. Yeah, so it's all kind of weird stuff. It's mostly my theory on it is that our modern way of living and the degree of busyness that we have kind of suppresses these functions or these capacities. I learned that being in the desert. Once I was in the desert, like sleeping in the dirt, being in isolation, all of this stuff started opening, and I was like, oh, there's actually, it's not like living in groups has a consciousness suppressing effect or anything like that, but it's that living in cities and the degree of busyness and preoccupation that we have in a way just acts as a buffer, so that things which orient you out of conventional reality are less accessible. Yeah, there's a reason that the vision quest is not something that you do in the village. You have to leave the village to do the vision quest. Yeah, you have to go into isolation to do it. Yeah, so like you could see the kind of energy or the meditation that you were doing leading up to it, and the high volume, the amount of it that you were doing. That's all like, that was like your kind of version of vision quest or deepening, And you notice like when you touch these different you have these different experiences, there's immediately like tests that come with it, like fear or overwhelm. So that's all part of like, okay, if you're going to push the boundaries, can you actually handle what's on the other side of these boundaries? You're pushing, you're deepening, you're investigating. Are you actually ready for what that will entail? So then experiences happen to help you understand your level of readiness. Yeah, it's a feedback system. So something big happens, you shit your pants, like I have. That shows you that what you're expanding into maybe a little more than what you can chew on. And so repeated trips to this and repeated preparation is a good thing. Being more focused and orienting yourself towards that is a good thing. It would be useful. Yeah. But the rule with this and all, strange stuff is if it freaks you out, just chill for a few days or a week or two. Yeah, because really it's the intensity of what you're doing that is producing those side effects. So all you have to do is dial down the intensity, and that often does it. Don't make it. You don't need to make it this whole thing about, oh, this is not going well. There doesn't need to be a narrative about it. If there's fear, just let it be fear. And this is a final point on this, and then we can sit. There's a guy, a mentor of mine. He's dead now, actually. His name is Robert Bruce. He wrote the book called Energy Work, and he wrote a very famous book on astral projection called Astral Dynamics. And Robert was an interesting fellow. A very strange life. And one day, he says he's sitting in his living room doing meditation and doing this kind of like energy raising that he discovered. And he said a burning bush actually appeared in the living room. You know, he was like, yeah, the burning bush from the Bible. That's not a metaphor. That's not a metaphorical thing. Like that actually happens. So this bush appears, starts burning, and he then is taken in an out-of-body experience to an Indian guru, and that teacher then explained to him some of the specifics of deeper energy work. So based on that, he tried this like manual raising of Kundalini, and he was successful at it. And it temporarily opened, clairvoyance and these kind of superpower states and whatever. Why the heck did I bring this guy up? Jeez. What? Oh, that's right. So Robert said, when you're doing energy work, this kind of like same way that your muscles can get sore from working out intensely, like your energetic anatomy can get sore. Your consciousness can get fatigued. So a lot of times when this like crazy stuff happens, it's just like you're experiencing consciousness de-stressing. Okay. And he said one of the side effects of deep Kundalini work is like it can cause problems with sleep and irritability, and the sensations can be like very strong, and you have the sense of feeling, a little unhinged or unstable. And so, yeah. So he said, so if you want to shut down all energetic phenomena and like just the sense of ungroundedness that can happen as a result of this work, eat a T-bone steak, have a beer, and have sex, and they'll shut down everything. like whatever subtle energy was flowing or becoming overwhelming, like it'll all shut off if you do that. So that's actually an advice that I've given to students that had problems sleeping. So like I had a student who was meditating 6 hours a day, and he wasn't sure if he was sleeping anymore. He's like, yeah, I just fall asleep and I close my eyes and then I open them and it's the morning. And he was like, yeah, but I don't feel very rested. And yeah, he was being vegetarian, and I just said, okay, stop being vegetarian. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, stop being vegetarian. If you want to fix your sleep, stop being vegetarian and eat meat. And he's like, okay. And he messaged me like 4 days after that. He's like, I can't believe that worked. He hasn't had sleep problems since. So yeah. So there's that. The vegetarianism is good for a lot of people. But the effect that It's like there's these levers, increasing meditation to a lot of hours, being vegetarian, being celibate, being silent, being in isolation. Like these are all consciousness accelerator levers. And so if you push too many of them up and you start to have problems, you just pull the levers down. That's how you get through it. Yeah. Sometimes one of the best things to do is to just like not try to be aware and just like watch a show, just like binge a season or something, if things are getting intense, or reach out to someone that can help you and guide you through it. Because often it's not that you're actually in dangerous territory. You just feel that you are. It's not that something irreversible is actually going to happen. It just feels that it is because you're being tested. Yeah. Okay.